right, so let's get started. I'm Stuart McIntosh. I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. I'm joined by Janie Regan, Charlie Law, Marty Muir, John Brown, and Mary Ellen Carpenter. Applicants of variance require a majority vote of the board. So 5 of us will be voting tonight. Mary Ellen, as an alternate, will not be voting. Okay, so tonight we have one applicant requesting 2 variances regarding property's generator and fence. I thought we would start with the generator, if we could start with that. And then what we'll do is we'll vote on that, and then we'll move into the fence. I know they're somewhat linked, but just try to sequence it. Okay, thank you.
So I'm John Malone, Architecture, representing the Garrelics on this project. The site is an unusual site, which you guys can see. It has 3 front yards. That was really what drove some of the decisions here, I think. The generator request it's not clear that it wasn't allowed in the front yard, but in the generator application it's been interpreted as an accessory building. I think the generator has been interpreted in the past as an accessory building, so it's effectively an accessory building in a front yard, in the location, in the front yard setback, I mean. So the generator location where it's installed right now is outside of what would be a typical side yard setback, but it's closer than what would be a front yard setback. Mm-hmm. This location, unlike a typical front yard, the front of the house and the way that it relates to the neighborhood is definitely to the bottom of the page here, to Courseview Road. That's its formal front. The rear of the house, the way the house was designed, I would assume may have even preceded the zoning of this area, was that the pool and the way that the house's oranges was out to the back. And on the other side of the Clubway Road there is golf course. So there's no residential property on the other side of there that's unlikely to ever be one. So the impact of the generator in that location, we think, is very, very minor and won't be an issue in the future. Also, it's completely screened with a fence, and that fence also has a sound barrier proposed for that fence, a sound-absorbing material which will further reduce the sound associated with the exercising of the generator. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the relationship just on the left of the page, where the house is very, very tight to the side yard, so the only real place where that generator would be allowed to be outside the front, unless it was really right next to the house, would be in that sort of service area of the side yard, which is very crowded and would have a greater impact to the neighbor on that side.
Quick question. When you say fence, I know there's a fence in front of the generator, and then there's the outside fence. So which fence are you talking about?
The outside fence is the fence that would have...
Well, that's one that you're looking for a variance for that fence, too, so...
Correct.
Okay,
correct.
Okay.
But that fence, the variance request, and we'll get to that, was about it being open. So, again, with the closed fence, it's not just the closeness of the fence that would control for sound there. There's also like a mat, these sound-related mats that get in, and they basically are absorbing certain frequencies that reduce the impact at the property line.
Right. Because the generator has to run in order to stay...
Yeah, they call it exercise. It needs to be exercise
once a week or something.
And I think it's a 20-minute exercise. These generators, it's a Generac. The model is designed to make that exercise quieter.
Okay.
So that's the thing that they've innovated, because you can't really make it, when the thing runs, it's going to make noise. But
yeah, it runs and running,
yeah. Yeah, it's running, right. So, and it's in a sound-insulated case already. And I think that portion of the fence from the properties from outside the property is also screened relatively well,
Right.
With vegetation.
Because I can't quite tell, but it's fairly well landscaped, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Both the outside of the fence and the portion that faces Courseview is screened, so you can't see what's there really.
Right. Okay.
The generator is for emergency results as opposed to running the pool or anything else like that?
Yes, it doesn't. It only would run in an emergency situation. The The generator's installed, yes. These are legalizations. This is definitely out of sequence that we're in front of you now.
Right, okay. I see there's no one from the public. On the generator, any other questions, comments? Okay, so, all right, so let me propose a resolution for this variance, that the Zoning Board of Appeals grant the residents of 6 Courtsview a variance from Section 310-9D. Generators are not allowed in any setback areas. Janie, I'll start with you.
I vote in favor of the variance. I don't think it seems like a big issue. It's removed from everybody, and you're right, there's no neighbors behind you. You're not going to hear it anyway. And the other side's a busy road, so yeah, I don't think it's a very substantial variance. So yes, I vote in favor of it.
Charlie?
Yes, I would also vote yes on the variance. I went over there. I couldn't see the generator because it was dark, but it seems to be placed in the best
Yeah.
possible location for noise and all of that, so I would vote yes on the generator. yeah.
Okay. Marty?
I also am in favor of the variance. Hopefully it plays loudly when I cuss out in the 18th hole.
I don't think you can hit a ball.
On a backswing.
But, no, it's isolated from the population, so I'm good with it.
Okay. John?
I'm in favor of the variance. I think it's insubstantial.
Okay, good. And I concur with my colleagues, so variance granted. Okay. All right, second item, the fence.
So the second item, the fence in a front yard is required to be 50% open. The fences that are, the fence that is installed in the front yard that's associated with the pool protection fence is an open fence. It's an open metal fence, and that was designed to be welcoming to the neighborhood, to provide the required, separation of that area and the safety associated with that, but not to be a visual barrier. That area is planted also, so it's clear and sort of works with the landscape. And that open fence stops as you get towards Pondfield Road and, more importantly, towards New Rochelle Avenue. And then it switches to a wood fence that was 50% open. At some point, the owner directed the contractor to close the open portion of that fence, the slots in that fence, because lights from the headlights coming down New Rochelle Avenue was pouring through that fence, and it's very difficult, given the area there, to get other dense plantings to grow. So there's some very mature trees in there, and there's a lot of shade, and there's not a lot of evergreen material that can do well in there. So the thought was that the fence should provide that protection from the headlights. This lot is very odd in its relationship to New Rochelle Avenue. If you guys have been to there, there's a big barrier there. It's a very high traffic road, and as you're coming this way, basically right to left on that page down New Rochelle, those lights are shining right into the primary suite, right into the bedroom area of the primary suite. So the goal of closing the fence there was to provide privacy for the lights and also privacy from the traffic for that yard, that side yard, which is the largest open space associated with the property. So that's the reason for the fence, and that's sort of the specific condition that makes this lot different than another lot. Okay. And this is also a legalization to the extent that the slots have been closed, but Neil, the owner, is asking for more than that, which is to add a topper on top of that existing fence, like to make it higher than what is currently shown there. So what's shown now is a closed 8-foot fence along that property line to try to control for the lights there.
So the,
If you go to the next page where the fence details are, I can show you the sort of the distinction there.
so the, I understand the argument around New Rochelle Avenue and the turn, but it continues all the way down
Yeah.
to the,
That one, that way,
not
yeah.
particularly
Right.
busy
So it
Siwanoy.
continues- Right, it continues around the rear of the property on Sawanoy Club Way.
Right.
So, and we're not asking to add any topper in that area. That's not important.
Right. I guess go back to the fundamental question, why the solid fence along the Siwanoy Way?
Right. I think the goal there was privacy. Again, it's not crucial. It's not as crucial as it is on the New Rochelle Avenue. I think the goal was privacy just from the golf course at that point.
So does this fence have flexibility, like you can open it up if you needed to?
Right now, I think it would be difficult to open it up. It would probably make,
So when that change was requested, it was a new fence
It-
material or type?
it
It
was
wasn't
a-
like taking a fence that had space and just pushing it?
it had a fence that had space between the boards, and then they basically put another level of boards on top of it, and then they finished the whole fence with that on it. So if you tried to pop that off now, the thing, I'm not sure if it would hold together, and certainly the finish of it would not hold together.
And so that change was for the whole fence, or on the, that whole solid fence, that change was made at the same time? Okay.
When you say the owner requested it to go from 50% to solid, do you mean Mr. Garlick or the owner prior?
No, it's this owner.
Oh, you.
I think they didn't understand that there was any limitation on that. At the time, we were working with a contractor that said that he had had the change permitted, that he had reviewed it with the building department, and they were okay with the change. That wasn't the case. That contractor did not finish this job and was kicked off the job. But that was basically the sequence. He basically, we thought that change had been reviewed with the building department. At the time, it had not, and we only found out when we tried to close out the job.
So
Well,
when
you would have needed a variance anyway, right? I mean, you would have had to come back if you wanted to
Right.
keep it open on that side, you would have had to come back.
Right. We thought that, I think, we were not as involved at that time. I think,
We being you, or we being the owner?
no, the architect, we were not involved in.
Okay, because your analysis says clearly that it was the contractor that made a mistake in, putting in the full enclosed fence. And to my mind, as a lawyer, that means, okay, the contractor just did it. Despite the fence permit, which says you're going to comply with all of the rules and regulations of the state, and village, and all of
Right.
that, which you didn't.
He didn't. And I think we, from our perspective in our office, we relied on what we were being told that had been reviewed, which we should not have been relying on. As a professional, we shouldn't have been.
Sounds like you got an issue with the contractor.
Yeah, we had a lot of issues with the contractor, and
Okay.
it took over 18 months to correct a bunch of other stuff that was incorrect. So it was not a good relationship with the contractor. Yeah, they built it themselves, they overcharged. Well, there's a lot of issues associated
Oh, I'm
with that.
sure,
Yeah,
believe me,
it
I've
was-
dealt with a lot of
It wasn't
Going back to the original point, when you moved in, there was a 6-foot 50% transparent fence there already? Oh, there was, from the prior owners. And did it wrap all the way along Siwanoy Boulevard also? Oh, it did,
Because of that pool?
yeah.
And after the fence was completed, did they go back to the building department to get a completion?
Well, I think what ended up happening, this was after we had a bunch of issues to resolve with the building department. The contractor was fired. This was one of the things that was identified that was wrong. Basically, the contractor got kicked off the job. We went back to the building department and said, what's happening here? What do we need to correct? And this was one of the things.
Yeah, but the fence was done. It was
Fence was built.
But after that, did anybody go down and say, it's completed, can we get it,
That was 5 years.
close this out?
The process of closing it out has been what brought this up, and it's been about 18 months.
I know,
I'm sorry.
but the fence was installed in 2019, correct?
Right, and there wasn't any, nobody thought that anything was wrong with it. That was what we're saying. Like, until we started to close it out, it wasn't really identified that there
But
was.
it went from a 50% open to completely closed.
Right.
And the permit said it had to be done in accordance with the village code.
Right.
And I know you're blaming the contractor, but that's your responsibility, correct?
It was, again, we were relying on the sense that this conversation had been had, and it, it was based on, their relationship with the building department, and that the building department said that it was not a significant change because of the design of the fence and its location and other things that we had heard at the time.
But nothing was ever done to close it out until
Or
now.
document that conversation is either.
That's right.
Well, that was a conversation with the GC, the former GC. It wasn't a conversation that we had with the building department. I'm not saying that the building department did that.
All right.
I'm saying the GC was, when that change was made, we were saying like, look, that has to be reviewed with the village, and they said it had been and it was fine. And
So one observation, on Pondville, New Rochelle, that corner there, it seems quite heavily landscaped. The house is set back 140 feet, so if it was 50% open, and you've got landscaping on both sides of the fence. Now, maybe when they filled it in, that landscaping did not exist. I don't know the timing of that, but it seems quite well landscaped now.
I think there's a difference between light coming through leaves or light coming through a landscape buffer. I think the issue more is it's difficult in that location to really have a solid evergreen buffer with something that has more like a skip laurel or something that's a solid leaf, like going through something that's like, what would be like a shade tolerant evergreen, like a pine or something like that. It's not really going to do that much for.
You'd have to put something like arborvitae, sort of very thick.
Yeah, it has to be something really, and arborvitae, again, are basically a full sun plant. Skip laurel, which are supposed to live in that situation, are we've been told are not really going to do it. There's a root system, there's a lot of dense cover on the top of them. They're not really going to thrive and not get to a height that's going to give them that kind of density.
Well, you could certainly do that on the Savonoy Clubway side, because that side is certainly more open than the other one. And I also notice your neighbor toward Savonoy has, hedges, arborvitaes.
Yeah, that's not really.
That should be easily dealt with without the big fence on that side.
Right. I mean, I think the other thing, the concern about, since the fence is in place, and I would just test this out, if there's a way to provide additional screening to the outside of the fence that would limit its visual impact to the neighborhood, is that something that the board would be helped by in terms of this? Because there is the opportunity, both on that side between the golf course and them, to do more to mitigate the visual impact of this fence, which would leave the solid fence, but it would effectively hide it from view more. Because I think part of when I see the images as you're coming down Pondville, something like that, is you're seeing the fence, and the concern about, in the village code, I think my understanding about having the fence open has more to do with not seeing these kind of barriers or trying to resist the unwelcoming nature of these
Yes.
barriers. And I think there's a lot that we could do with planting that would, mitigate that and reduce the impact of that.
But it seems a bit of a challenge because the wall along the golf course seems to be on top of a wall. And it's.
Fences up.
I'm sorry, the fence is right up against that wall. I mean, there is no landscaping, and I assume the reason there isn't because it'd be very difficult. It seems to me there's landscaping on the inside of the fence.
Right.
It'd just be.
I was thinking more at the Pondfield corner, we
I
could
think he's
do more
focused
to
on the
mitigate
lights
that.
coming
Oh, you're still okay.
Yeah, I was on the Pondfield corner side. Yeah, I understand, the golf course side, right, there is less room given its location.
So,
The Pondfield corner side, we tried two plantings of skip laurels.
Right.
And they both had, so we tried to leave the skip laurels 2 seasons. But on the club side, certainly do something
yep.
outside of the fence.
Are you using a landscape architect or a landscape contractor, Okay. It would have been helpful to actually hear his input tonight on this. Sure.
So the fence is currently installed, but the top part that you're requesting a variance is not installed.
It's not installed.
Well, the variance is for the fence itself. I mean, if the fence is,
Fence plus topper.
So now I'm understanding
Yes.
asking for 2 textures
oh, yeah, no,
Yeah,
of course.
it's asking for that.
and over the allowed size.
Right.
And just to be clear, the topper that's being requested is only on the pond field. It's only designed in that one corner for that. It's not along the golf.
And the request is to add how much to the height of it?
18 inches.
So it's 8 feet now, and you want to add?
6 feet.
It'll become 7.5.
There is an area though where it looks shorter and then it looks bigger.
Well, it's following the grade.
Yeah.
Right, but it isn't it higher in one area?
I think relative to the grade, it's,
So it's lower and then it goes to 6 feet? It's lower on the vertical side.
Yeah.
I didn't see down here.
The topper
Yeah,
part
the
of it?
top one.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I-
You're talking about what's the landscaping on the outside of the fence? Whose property is that?
we have a little bit. We still have a little bit on the out. I think what was brought up by the board is that we don't have property really on the golf course side.
Right.
We do, I think you can see the line, there's not very much room.
It's very short. I walked by there today, it's very small.
You have, I think, what does that look like? You have maybe 2 or 3 feet there, between. Yeah. Yeah, and there is some planting
With the
there
fence
already,
against
but
it.
You see the area that's just to the top of the page from the generator location there. There's no planting in that area there, and we do have a little bit of space between the property line. It looks like probably about 5 feet. We could certainly fill that in and hide that solid piece of fence. Because the one other place that we would like to keep the solid piece of fence is related to the generator in that area, because that helps with our sound control in that area. But again, if you look at the other, towards the pond field side, there is room to add on the outside of the fence.
Could you put the mats inside the generator fence itself?
Well, we're trying to stop the sound from going across the street, so we're trying to keep it on our property. So we're basically the 6-foot fence that's on the other side of the generator, between the generator and Salvanoy Clubway. I keep worrying that I'm saying that wrong. For the soundproof.
But really, I mean, this generator sound, first of all, doesn't come on that often. Number two, it's the golf course on the other side.
Right.
Yeah,
So that's really not an issue.
No, it's not.
No.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it might interrupt your swing.
That's what I was worried about.
Okay.
Might help you.
Okay.
So what you're trying to say is if it was a 50% transparent fence and was slightly louder, it wouldn't really matter.
Yes.
I think with the heavy
Sound-wise.
landscape, can you show on the slide, Christina, is the landscaping on Pond Field?
Yeah.
Can you, okay, can we zoom in on that? Because
A lot of trees, yeah.
So you see, I think
I can't believe light gets through.
the darker stuff is supposed to be our planting on the outside, which I don't think is there.
doesn't appear.
There's not
But
much.
you can see that there's space between the fence and the property line for us to do some planting there. And we could do that along that whole length of it to basically hide that fence, so that the owner gets the benefit of the solid fence and the neighborhood gets the benefit of not seeing it.
What's the distance, 3 feet?
I think at the tightest point there, it's about 4, and then you see at the 2 corners, it starts to get larger to 6 or 8 on either.
And what are the nature of the trees that are 30 inches, 24 inches, 30 inches? Are those evergreens, or are they deciduous?
Oh, I wish we had the tree, I don't think we had submitted the tree plan. on
Did
that.
leaves fall from those trees, the big trees? The trees that are facing Pond Field on your landscaping here, which I'm looking at, the larger trees, what are they? What type of tree are they? Are they
they
broadleaf?
deciduous?
Are they evergreens? What are they?
I think they're mostly deciduous. I think there is one evergreen in there. Yeah, that would
Oh,
be.
yeah, pictures, good.
Okay, let's see where.
This is obviously not exactly curved.
No, that's from
Oh,
when
yeah,
the
that's
Coons
pretty-
lived
Okay, that's
there.
good, yeah.
Okay, that's good.
This way the fence comes up.
Right, but your other shot, that shows the landscaping.
Yeah, so they're, yeah.
That's where the show, yeah.
So there's the hole that, we could fill. That whole corner is where we do have property to landscape this side of the fence.
I see.
Yeah, sightline issues.
Yeah.
Right, people,
Right, that's relieved, yeah, it's true.
When you turn it, you can't have them too far, if they block.
Because of the sight lines.
If they're taking a turn,
Right, we had that case on,
coming out of
on
Southern,
Sturgis.
turning left.
Remember the case on
Turning
Sturgis?
right.
We had to turn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got-
What if you notice from this picture that we were always looking at here, see how the bottom part where it says Bronxville, and first view, see how that's set in further? Because there's supposed to be like a triangle from one street to the other.
To view.
Across.
For the view, yeah.
And then the other side is not as far.
Yeah, so, there, you know, you, you could have a hazard. So that's a white pine that looks like there, which is not going to block,
No, they don't block out.
yeah.
No.
But planting can be done on this side of the fence.
Yeah,
Clearly, you could put, yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, there's no planning that really.
you can't put anything up there.
Yeah, well, I wish I knew more about what is and isn't possible from an arborist or from somebody who knows.
This, screening this side, we have plenty of sun. This can be screened, and you could do a planting here where you would, on the outside the fence, that you wouldn't see any of the fence.
Yeah.
So that could be a skip laurel planting or something that's evergreen that could mitigate that, and actually would have the added benefit of, you know, providing more screening to the pool as it grew, because it would go higher than that.
Right.
Right.
Well, aesthetically,
Yeah,
it would be a lot better, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think having, you know, that, for me, the visual impact of that fence is more the issue than, I don't think you'd want to have less privacy. I don't think having a 50% open fence with no planting there is good either for the owner or for the neighborhood. I think you want the privacy, it's just that you don't want this monolithic fence running.
Yeah, you could put arborvitaes or
Yeah.
green giants in there,
A lot of
and it
stuff
would
right
actually
there.
look better than this
Yeah,
fence,
much
frankly.
better, and it would work better for both the owner and the...
But you already, don't you already have planting on the inside of that fence? Pretty much along that whole fence by the swim, because that's
Saw
the
some
swimming pool.
lattice work, you have some lattice, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, just,
oh, there it is, yeah.
I don't think that planting's been installed, Neil, on that inside face.
Yeah, okay.
But it's planned.
I don't think they want
Maybe
to
they
do it anymore
move it to
because
the
it's
outside
constricting the
instead.
pool too much, like the area around the pool, so it would be better for us to try to get it to happen on the outside if we could.
So this is gonna have to be updated and submitted to application of what you're showing.
Yeah.
Right, okay, we can do that.
Well, and plus with the application, there's another variance request which was not listed. Yeah, which we didn't realize.
Meaning the variance for the topper is separate from that.
yeah, it's not in the,
That's
That
separate
wasn't even
from
in
the
there.
fence.
not in our application.
Right.
I
And
think
why
the-
did you choose to have, we want the topper, because it's still not tall enough at 6? You think 7.5 will?
Yes, that's what we've heard, that there's still a lot.
Yeah, so that's right, where the light will,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
So your application tonight is only for a solid fence.
Okay,
It does not state the extra 2 feet.
of the topper.
So that's technically not on the table.
Right,
Right,
no,
right.
Okay, okay.
I didn't know that you guys were looking for that also, so I didn't submit the application, but according to the application, it's only a solid fence.
Okay. So that can be considered in the future as a separate order if they want, if the board wants to address any of part of this now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly make it easier.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to have that
Yeah,
plan.
If the board is open to us trying to address it with landscape, I mean, we can do that for the next meeting. And then I think is it reasonable to have the variance for the topper and the variance for the fence considered separately based on what people have heard today? Are those two different? Or-
You can't have a topper without a fence.
I know. No, but like, if it was if the board was concerned, with one part of it separate from the other,
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to allow for.
Well, just as a little bit of history, I mean, these fences are a big deal
Yeah.
in this village, just so we're clear on that. And it wasn't that long ago, we had a case here on White Plains Road where the applicant had to remove the fence and fix it because it was a solid fence. It wasn't that long ago. And, same thing, well, we could landscape it and so forth and so on. But I'm just mentioning that it's a big issue, and for the reasons you mentioned. You don't want to fence in the whole town, because I can assure you, there are plenty of requests, because the lots are so small.
Yeah, one of the things we have to deal with, it's not directly related to your application, of course, is precedent.
Right.
And, it's relevant because you've already built your fence, but the point is, if we, grant your variance because you've already built your fence, then your neighbor comes along and says, he or she wants to, I built a fence.
I would argue, and we understand that, and we wouldn't necessarily want to put you in that position. I think there is something special about this property in terms of its relationship to Pondfield, its relationship to the oncoming traffic on New Rochelle Avenue, but then also here in its relationship to the golf course, I think. So even though this fence is atypical, it could be argued that this is the result of this property not having a backyard, right?
We get a lot of those
We do
applications
get
too,
those.
though.
You do, yeah.
Yep.
Right.
It's just coming up with the show. In the past 40 years, it was an accident required to prior to the solid fence being approved.
Into your yard?
Only once?
With all that stuff there, with all those poles and those barriers? Oh, before they put those heavy
the
barriers
median.
in, yeah.
Yeah, that's why they put the median, yeah, slow them down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What do they want to do?
Well, I think it sounds like there was a suggestion that if we are proposing to continue to pursue the variance for the solid fence, we should update the landscape plan to show what mitigation we can do and bring it back to you. Does that make sense?
Well,
That's a
I
suggestion.
think, I can discuss it with my committee, but I think we should vote on the variance that's been presented tonight. Now, depending on how that gets sorted out, obviously you can always come back with a revised plan.
Okay.
Okay, right, Christina? No limitation on that. Okay. Any other questions, comments from my board? Anything from down here?
Right.
Oh, that's a good point, because most people in the village don't realize where their property line actually is versus
Yeah.
the village. Right. Okay, so let me propose a resolution for the second variance, that the Zoning Board of Appeals grant the residents of 6 Courts View a variance from Section 310-910. Fences in the front yard need to be 50% open. Any such fence or wall erected in any front yard shall not be more than 1/2 solid. Let's see, who are we going to start with? John, your thoughts?
I'm against the variance, and I think it sets a bad precedent. And I also believe that it was incumbent upon the owner, I know he had an issue with his contractor, but that's still his responsibility. And nothing was ever closed out with this fence, and I'm just against the variance.
Okay. Charlie, your thoughts?
Yes, I just have too many questions. Now, I believe that a portion of the fence is not necessary. The portion on the clubway side, I'm not convinced that the front side on New Rochelle Road, is that New Rochelle Road? Can't be resolved. The headlight issue can't be resolved with foliage or some other way. And I'm also concerned with precedent. So I'm going to vote against the variance in this variance, yeah.
Okay. Marty?
I also vote against the variance. Sorry that you had that terrible contractor, but again, for precedent reasons aside, I think if you're trying to fix that, you might have to address your white pine, which generally doesn't allow other things to grow around it. And so you're going to probably have a bigger, there's ways to do with arborvitae and other things that can give you the shield. I'm sympathetic to that need, but I'm afraid you're going to have to do a bunch of landscaping in any event to get the blockage you need. And then in the long Siwanoy side, notwithstanding the fact you're going to have to look at my golf swing, I think that I think it's inappropriate to have a solid fence there.
Right. Thank you. Janie?
I agree with my colleagues, too. I think it's inappropriate. And as you did a really good job of going through the 5 considerations, but I kind of come up with yes to a few of those. Like it will make an undesirable change, unless you prove that somehow or another we won't see that fence. But that's a long, big, very visible fence for quite a while. And other people down the street don't have that, whatever privacy issues they have or don't, but if you go down the rest, I don't think they need a fence. And the benefits sought, and and it was somewhat self-created problem. I know the property isn't your self-created problem, but you bought the property knowing the location. And there's got to have to be a way to solve it, maybe better than that. Right. So I also vote against it.
All right, thanks. Okay. And I agree with my colleagues. So variance is not granted. Thank you for coming in, and that concludes tonight's meeting. Thank you.